I've already made one video on The Grey. It is a remarkable film. In that video I go over the many different messages I think the film is trying to communicate, but in this video I'm going to focus solely on the wolves themselves, specifically the alpha wolf, and what they represent. There is a common criticism in regards to The Grey, which is that wolves don't hunt people like that, it's unrealistic, it's dumb, and I will admit that the film does try to rationalize it in a way I don't think is necessary. At one point a character says something like, "Wolves are the only animal capable of revenge," and John Ottaway also says, "They're killing us out of defense for their territory." I don't think those lines are needed, because in a deeper way, wolves are the best possible creature for this type of story. Now before I get into the deeper meaning, I do want to take a second to praise the design of the wolves, especially the alpha wolf, because the animal is just menacing. Its almost supernatural presence is best displayed in this amazing little sequence. Just the handful of close-ups we get to see of the alpha wolf give it more personality than a lot of villains in major blockbusters. You almost get the sense that the black wolf understands everything about the characters he's staring down. He knows their deepest fears and their biggest regrets, and because of this knowledge, he's able to walk them all down, even when it's 5 against 1. It is one of the best monsters in film history. Now back to the symbolism. Throughout the history of literature and storytelling, the wolf has always represented a unique brand of wickedness. The best example of this historic representation is in Dante's Inferno. If you haven't read the Inferno before, I can't regard it highly enough. The poetry is beautiful, but it also has a very special understanding of human psychology. The Inferno begins with the main character, who is actually Dante himself, and he wakes up in a dark forest. He's scared, he doesn't know where to go, but he eventually comes across a path that leads up a small mountain that will take him out of the forest. But before Dante can make much progress, he is stopped by 3 different animals. The first is a leopard, the second is a lion, and of course the third is a wolf. The 3 animals represent 3 different brands of sin that Dante eventually encounters in hell. The leopard represents the sins which really only affect yourself and are the least severe, for instance lust, greed, gluttony, and sloth. The lion represents sins of violence, mistakes you make in the heat of the moment, second-degree murder for instance, so you're hurting somebody, but it isn't premeditated and it isn't calculated. Sins on the wolf, on the other hand, which are found at the very bottom of hell, find their respective place because there is an intelligence behind them, the most severe of which is treachery. Now I don't think the director intended to connect the Grey to the Inferno, but it's kind of interesting that the treacherous in Dante's Inferno are stuck in a frozen lake at the bottom of hell, and of course the Grey takes place in the frozen plains of Alaska. So how can we connect the symbolism of Dante's wolf to the alpha wolf and his pack in The Grey? As I pointed out in my first video on The Grey, the biggest struggle for John Ottaway and his fellow survivors is an internal struggle. These are 21st century men living in a world that has already mastered the environment. Suicide is a much bigger threat to an American man in the 21st century than starvation, which just a few hundred years ago would be unthinkable. From the very beginning of the movie, we see John Ottaway dealing with this exact crisis. His wife is dead, it doesn't appear that he has any family, so all he does every day is wake up, kill some wolves, have a drink, and go to bed. For Diaz, maybe the film's best character, he has almost an identical routine. So the question becomes this: is there anything wrong with these men giving themselves up to the wolves? They're in a lot of pain, they have nothing to go back to, so why not? This is where Dante's symbolism enters the picture. Diaz and Ottaway, who share the first name by the way, John, take opposite routes. Diaz gives himself up to the wolves, John goes down fighting. Diaz, in a way, is betraying himself by deciding that his life isn't valuable enough to keep fighting for. Anyone who commits suicide is doing the exact same thing. That is a sin of the wolf. Before the alpha even digs into Diaz's body, he's already killed his soul. John decides not to betray himself, and I think in part because of his wife's words, "Don't be afraid." She's saying, don't be afraid to live. She's telling him that there is immense value in his life, even without her in it. And then the movie cuts out before we know who wins the final fight. But just like Diaz lost before he was even killed, John wins no matter what ends up happening. He doesn't betray himself and give up, even when he's standing in the alpha wolf's own den. It's an amazing final decision, very powerful, and during the scene we get the best look of the alpha wolf, and he's terrifying, just like life is terrifying. But John doesn't take even a single step back like Diaz does earlier in the film. He gathers the few weapons he has left at his disposal and faces down the monster. Again, The Grey is an amazing film that deserves a lot more praise. It isn't a perfect movie, but if our society accepted some of the core messages, I think we'd be better for it. And the Alpha Wolf, man, it is one of the best movie monsters of all time, and it's only on screen for a couple minutes, which is quite the achievement. Thank you so much for watching this video. Subscribe if you'd like to see more content of this nature. As I've mentioned before, I'm going to be a little bit more diverse in my content because of the lack of new movies. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to leave an idea in the comment section. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and hopefully I will talk to you soon. Have a good one.